That's it.
Baseliner. She changed the spin, she gave Chrissy backspin, topspin, drop volleys, hard volleys, all the angles that the court could supply. But of course she couldn't maintain that after winning the first set 6-love. The second set was a real battle to 7-5. But I think out of all the matches I've seen Billie Jean play, that to my mind was the best I've seen her perform.
Well, now, just have a look at the lady who's going to control this semi-final. Catherine McTavish.
You get ready, ladies, please.
From Northern Ireland. And the conditions here, in many ways, couldn't be better. It's a very even light. It's a bright light, but an even light. And the court, I was walking on it this morning, or walking along the side of it this morning, it looks very firm. It's recovered from the play it had yesterday when they had the cover
Mrs. King
on and off
to serve.
so often. And there's
Quiet,
only the
please.
merest touch of wind. So Billie Jean to start this semi-final.
Love. Love.
Billie a little bit surprised, but it was just too long. And Linesman's call was very clear and very decisive.
Net.
First service. Game to Mrs. King. First game.
And I imagine Mrs. King will be very pleased with that opening game. 5 points played. She got the first service in 3 times. And she started that match with a serve and a backhand volley and then a forehand volley and looked very, very crisp. Perhaps both girls a little bit nervous. The opening of this very, very important match, of course. A little bit, not leg weary exactly, but just a bit tense. And tenseness always affects the limbs. But Anne, I would have thought a good opening game for Billie Jean.
Yes, I think a lot of this match will depend on the length of Billie Jean's serve. I think that's one of the reasons why she served that double fault. She cannot afford short second serves because she knows the Lloyd ground strokes are so accurate. So she has to go for the lines and hope that her service works for her and is accurate. I think, though, there is an tense air of expectancy over the whole stadium. The spectators seem to feel that way, and certainly the players are both extremely nervous.
Mrs. Lloyd to serve.
And there in the centre of the picture is John watching his wife play.
Net.
First service. Love 15.
And talking of short second services, or short services at all, Billie Jean King is one of the women players who really knows how to get the benefit from taking those early. Oh, a chance.
15 all. $15.30. $15.40.
So 2 break points, Mrs. King.
$30.40.
Yeah.
Deuce.
Billie Jean King had a very hard and long... Billie Jean King had a hard mixed double yesterday, which they just won, she and Owen Davidson. Looks just a little bit limb weary at the moment. Deuce.
Advantage, Mrs. King.
Well, that was a bad bounce, but also helped, of course, by the heavy slice on the King backhand. Well, the idea was right, of course, making the drive volley pass, or attempting to, but just a little slow getting there. The ball was only knee height when she arrived in hitting position, Billie Jean. So back again to Deuce.
Net.
First service. Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd. Game to Mrs. Lloyd. One game all.
Would you please have him turn that light off? Every day I have to ask. There's a light underneath it. You can't see it from there.
Would you please not use flash during play?
No, it's not a flash.
Start over. There's a big light underneath it. They never turn it off.
It's a light, I think, that is over an exit at the back of the centre court. And it could be that she wants turned out. So it's one game all, and Billie Jean has got to forget there that she had 3 break points. And what a lead that would have been, 2-love instead of 1-all.
Love. All.
And that second service was never in gear at all. From the moment she released the ball, the throw-up wasn't right, and she tried to play it, tried to compensate, instead of catching it.
$40-15.
Just missed.
Game to Mrs. King. Mrs. King leads 2-1, first set.
And I've often heard the men say it takes about, in a big match like this on the centre, it takes about four games before they really feel loosened up mentally and physically. Now, you've had this experience. Is it about right, 4 games?
I would have thought so for a match of this stature, Dan, yes. But I feel too that Billie Jean will be extremely disappointed that she didn't break Mrs. Lloyd's serve. She had 3 break points. She had 15-40, 2 break points together. And I think the pattern of how Billie Jean is going to attack Chris is already clear. She's going to attack those services, particularly the second one. She's going to slice it heavily and go to the net. But of course, having employed that tactic, she then can't afford to miss the ensuing volley. And Chrissy, as the baseliner, always has this problem to face, that while Mrs. King is serving first and holding her own serve, this puts a lot of pressure on Chrissy's own delivery.
Time.
She's not overly confident on her serve, and if she does happen to miss the first one, the second one can be short, and this in turn puts stress on her own ground strokes. But it's a thing she's used to defending, and certainly she's out there to play the ball, and not the reputation of Mrs. King. And so the score stands at 1-2.
Love 15.
Now that, of course, is another of Billie Jean's great shots. And with the tactical brain such as she's got and the ability to execute drop shots like that, this is a ploy I'm sure she'll use quite a great deal in this match.
15-30. All.
Now, the weaker wing of Mrs. King's ground strokes, the forehand, in comparative terms, of course, but she does make the occasional unforced error that side. And something there of the tactics he used against Tracy Austin in the previous round. Slight loops and slices, and different pace on many of her shots. And some very good finessing by both players there, looking for a chance of the finishing shot, or trying to work the chance for a finishing shot.
Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd. Game to Mrs. Lloyd.
Well, that certainly was a very deep ball.
2 games all.
Very deep ball from the two-handed side of Mrs. Lloyd, and Billie Jean didn't seem to properly prepare, didn't cover it. She thought, I think, that it was going out. 2 games all, and she's lost the chance once again. She had a break point there.
Net. First service. Love 15.
Well, that was interesting because the volley of Mrs. King's was going out, and Mrs. Lloyd, without hesitation, came in and took it.
Love 30.
Now, was she hesitating about that one? She probably was, but the previous one that I made a comment about, taking the ball that was going out, there was no hesitation at all, and there's a golden rule in this game: if you're in doubt about whether the ball is going to be in or out, take it.
15-40.
Well, Billie Jean, a mixture of lifted drives, slightly top drives, heavy slice. But the last one, she really lost control of the ball there. But that's the mixture that I'm sure she is going to employ. That plus the drop shots and the coming in behind the serve and taking advantage of any short serves.
Mrs. Lloyd leads 3-2 first set.
And I think Billie Jean has really rather lost direction in this match. She should have broken through a couple of times, but now Chrissy is starting to get her ground strokes going. And Billie Jean is answering to the Mrs. Lloyd tactic now. Chrissy stretching her with every move, and there she's so confident that she takes that ball on the volley that was going out. And I rather feel, Dan, that Billie Jean's played Chrissy in now. I think at the end of that third game, when she stayed on the baseline and played those long rallies, when I rather expected her either to approach down the centre, as she has been doing, coming to the net, or alternatively playing the drop shot, she elected to stay back, to rally with Chrissy, and thus play her into the match. Chrissy now has secure ground strokes going on both wings.
Time, ladies.
Billie Jean has to break up her opponent's rhythm, and the way she is trying to do this in this rally is with the underspin of that backhand, as the ball hits the turf and bites in and stays low. And here, the top spin, she's hoping to deceive her opponent with the top spin on the bounce that shoots through more. And there is the forehand of Billie Jean. Not quite such a secure stroke, but one that she says is working particularly well during these championships.
Quiet, please.
So Chrissy has a break in hand, 3-2, first set.
Out. 15, love. Love.
Difficult ball that for Billie Jean. It was neither, the lob was neither high enough to play a smash, a normal smash, nor was it high, nor was it low enough for her to play a normal volley. It halfway house, that shot. Chrissy perhaps guilty of rushing the backhand pass there. Billie Jean came in very quickly on a heavily sliced ball, and they are keeping a little bit low.
All.
A very solid smash, that. Just out.
Game to Mrs. King. Three games all.
And a couple of times in that game, Mrs. Lloyd rushing the backhand a little bit. Very threatening when Billie Jean comes in, of course, behind a service that's been short. And you're aware that it's short, and here she is coming in behind a heavily sliced ball to take charge of the net. So just trying the toss-up, the sun in Billie Jean's eyes. She serves at 3-all in the first set of this semi-final.
Love.
Very confident two-handed shot off the ball, the fort. This is the way players sometimes do get their feel of the ball, and there's no responsibility.
Out. 30-15. Ball was out.
Well, in modern women's tennis, there hasn't been a better backhand volley than that of Billie Jean King's. Not that that was exceptional, but that is a stroke, one of her really great strokes. And that's one of the great strokes of Mrs. Lloyd, that two-hander over the high part of the net down the line against the volleyer.
Game to Mrs. King. Change the ball, please. Mrs. King leads 4-3, first set.
And that, I think, was very much like the Billie Jean King of old. The first serve with the heavy slice, taking her opponent right out of court. And then the ideal first volley of Billie Jean. She can put it into the open space, or she can put it back where you're running from. And here is the second point of this game, which is a perfect example of this. She serves it wide. Chrissy, with her two-handed return, dips it. Billie Jean has to volley up, but she keeps it deep. And then she reads the Chrissy ground stroke and puts the ball away where Chrissy's in the direction that Chrissy is not running. Billie Jean has an ideal sense of where her opponent is. Obviously, when you're playing, especially on the centre court, as a tennis player, you must watch the ball. But Billie Jean always seems to have that sixth sense of awareness as to in which direction her opponent is running, and manages to put the ball the other way. I think over the years her game has been built around this first volley. It really is the most superb shot on both wings. The backhand better, but forehand is pretty good too. So can she maintain her grip on this? 3-4.
15, love. Love.
I think it would have been a winner without the assistance of the net cord. Billie Jean wasn't covering that one. Yes.
30, 15, 30. Correction. 30, 15.
Yes, that's better. Oh, I see.
40, 30.
Oh, that really was a wild pass. Billie Jean's approach shot on the forehand off the second service was really not at all deep, and certainly didn't have much bite on the ball with spin. It really was a bad error. Yes, great play.
Four games all.
Really great play. Just have a look at this. They're both playing well at the same time. The volley isn't quite angled enough, nor sure she wrong foots her or tries to, and Billie Jean fighting to get into position, anticipating correctly, but the Lloyd backhand pass was too good. It was a great rally. Well played.
Love.
A lot of taking in of breath from both players there. That was a pretty close quarter rally.
Next.
First service. Love.
Shot. I must say the low backhand volley of Billie Jean's was a very good reply to what was a really good forehand, but she had no chance against the pass at all.
Out. 40-15.
That's a good...
Game to Mrs. King.
Yes, slightly hesitant, Mrs. Lloyd, but the serve was good, I'm quite sure.
Mrs. King leads 5-4, first set.
And that's the first ace of the match, and a good moment to serve it, to take you out on the service game.
And Billie Jean really needed that game, Dan. And I think the first point was absolutely vital to her. Because if you lose that first point, you're fighting an uphill battle in the game. And that half volley was extremely difficult for her. And the backhand smash, not an easy shot at the best of times. Chrissy just scraping it up and positioning herself as best she could in the middle of the court, getting a good backhand. But the volley was too high from Chrissy, and Billie Jean able to find the right spot in the court to hit the winner. But Billie Jean has obviously to fight very hard for this first set. It's pity in a way that one has to talk in terms of Billie Jean all the while in this match. But Billie Jean is the one who is carrying the tactics to her opponent. And obviously at 38, the first set is vital to her.
Giving away 11 years, and it's a lot, isn't it?
It is indeed. Especially to a champion of Chrissy's stature. So 4-5, first set.
Yep.
15 love.
It's in. That was misjudgment.
Love.
Well, that's what happens if the drop shot isn't delicate enough, and it didn't have much disguise, that one.
Game to Mrs. Lloyd. Five games all.
And a love game at that, too. And a love game at this stage of a set is a very, very big confidence lifter. They've been on court 37 minutes.
Love 50.
And Billie Jean had to do a lot of work in that 9-stroke rally.
All.
Rather pained there, Billie Jean. I think she was caught in two minds there, whether to step in and play a very low, difficult backhand passing shot, hesitated and got caught there with that half volley with the back almost to the net. 5-all, 30-all, first set. Oh, yes.
40-30.
What a terrific return of the service and a return to a decent court position by Mrs. Lloyd there. Billie Jean's first serve took her opponent, 2 yards out of court. Oh, what anticipation.
Advantage, Mrs. King.
Oh, that was really marvellous anticipation because Mrs. Lloyd could have done almost anything. She could have gone down the line, across the court, which she tried. She could have lobbed, yet Billie Jean anticipated the right shot. So advantage server. Oh, see.
Game to Mrs. King. Mrs. King leads 6-5. First set.
And Billie Jean really sailing close to the wind in that game. There were so many balls that landed just inside the line. She really was very, very lucky. And at 30 all, it was the most incredible point. Remember, it's 5 all, 30 all. Such a tight position. And Chrissy returning extremely well now, so low.
Time, ladies.
And that ball dipping at Billie Jean's feet, all she can do is scrape it back. But Billie Jean reads where it's going and puts away the volley. And Chrissy really must be cursing herself for not doing something different with that shot. Of course, it's the moment of decision. The ball takes a long time to bounce and a long time to come up when you know you want it to do so quickly so that you can aim in the hole immediately. And Billie Jean putting a towel there behind the court so that she can wipe her glasses in between points if necessary. And so, 5-6 now.
Very strong sun shining now. I bet there were a lot of people in this crowd were wondering what Billie Jean was going to do with that simple looking ball, but rather a difficult ball in fact. It's 15 all.
Yep. 30-15.
Net.
First service.
Too much.
Game to Mrs. Lloyd. Six games all. Tie break now operates.
So it will be Mrs. King to start the tie break.
Quiet, please. Mrs. King to serve. Mrs. Lloyd.
So that's a good start for Mrs. Lloyd to break the service straight away.
One all. Two, one, Mrs. Lloyd.
So one break apiece in this tie break. So the score in the tie break is 2-1 to Mrs. Lloyd, both having broken each other just once. And certainly that ball bounced quite high. Mrs. King probably putting a little bit extra topspin on the service, but badly timed by Mrs. Lloyd.
One point.
That ball seemed to float a bit.
Mrs. Lloyd.
So as they change over at the end of 6 points, there's a very definite advantage here for Mrs. Lloyd, having got the extra break of serve.
Yes, indeed, Dan. It's really a battle of wits now between the two of them. And one can't help but feel that Chrissy is playing this tiebreak extremely calmly and quietly and assuredly.
No, just too much.
5-2, Mrs. Lloyd.
So she has a problem, Mrs. King now. She's got to hold both her serves and bring about a break of 1. Two 5.
Mrs. Lloyd.
Oh, that's a peach.
6-3, Mrs. Lloyd.
So, set point.
Mrs. Lloyd.
It really was a very confident smash of one of the highest loves we've had on the centre court. So after 52 minutes, the set 7-6 to Mrs. Lloyd and the tiebreak 7-4. A lot of very clever cat and mouse play, and at the end of that tiebreak, or all through the tiebreak in fact.
Yes, indeed, Dan. I think that Chrissy played it superbly well. She kept her eye firmly on the ball. She took absolutely no notice of where her opponent was in the court, whether she was on the baseline or at the net. And Chrissy then quietly and calmly picked her spot on the court and played into it. And two very clever lobs, I thought, Dan, right at the end. The first one was put away by Mrs. King, but Billie Jean was forced to look into the sun, was forced to take the added responsibility of playing that overhead. And then when the second one came along, she was made to look into the sun again, and the error was drawn from her.
I find the fascination of this match, of course, in the match between
Time, ladies, please.
a real serving volley all-court player, Mrs. King, and of course the confirmed baseliner, Mrs. Lloyd. Not that Mrs. Lloyd can't, when necessary, make a good volley, but basically a pure baseliner. And this is a fascinating duel between the two. And of course Mrs. King, with all her strategical and tactical knowledge.
Quiet, please. Second set. Mrs. Lloyd to serve. Love.
Oh, that's a bit hard.
30, love.
Having misjudged coming up to the half volley, having misjudged the ball and what he was going to do with it, gone out of that well, and then to suffer a net cord, that was a bit much.
40, love. by 1 set to love.
And I was just thinking, you know, concentration, when you're 38 years of age, when you've had all the play that Mrs. King has had, concentration goes a bit. And I thought a couple of times in that opening game there, she lost her concentration when she got tied up with that ball that got out of it. Wouldn't you think that might be something she'll have to be wary of?
Yes, I think so. I think it's the intense disappointment down to a degree of losing that first set, because she had lots of opportunity at the beginning to really get away to a very big lead, and she was unable to take advantage of those opportunities. So she will be very cross with herself that she allowed that set to slip away to the point where it reached the tiebreak and where she had the added strain. Always, as you say, being the net rusher, she's the one who's taking the match to Chrissy. She's the one who's taking the responsibility, and I think with the added tension of a tiebreak, she found this just that little bit too much, because when she gets to the net, she can't possibly afford to miss those volleys. She has to make them winners, because if she gives Chrissy a second chance at it, then Chrissy has the passing shots to cope with the situation. And it's amazing to me, Dan, that at 38 she still has the desire to play and to win. Not the fact that she's out there because she has all the strokes, all the equipment that's needed, but the mere fact that she wants to be out there and win this match, to me, is quite incredible after all these years and all these Wimbledons.
15 love.
So good, Mrs. Lloyd, at the forehand running pass. That's a fine volley. Now the serve volley tactic at its best. Billie Jean really striking that volley as firmly as any she's played in the match. Right bang in the middle of the racket. And another.
40-15.
Well, if she can do that once more, 3 times in succession, she'll feel the world is hers. It gives her more confidence in a succession of shots like that.
Game to Mrs. King.
Well, here it is. This is the basis of Billie Jean's success through the years. What a lovely volley. At full stretch, beautifully balanced, racket head controlled, textbook shot that. So 1 game all, second set.
love.
And people often think that that's bad temper from Billie Jean, but it's just sheer disappointment that she failed herself at the last moment.
Out. 30 love.
That was a pretty good rally too. Pity it had to finish with a loser.
Love. Game to Mrs. Lloyd. Change the ball, please. Mrs. Lloyd leads 2 games to 1 and by 1 set to love.
And Chrissy's game has really picked up, I think, in tempo, having won the first set. She seems to be far more secure now in mind, and therefore the pace of the passing shots is gaining all the while. And Billie Jean certainly had a chance in that first point of the last game. She obviously played a very brave service game. As I've already said, Chrissy's ground strokes are getting so much better that Billie Jean's volleys correspondingly have to get that much better too. So Billie Jean is now really being stretched in that net position. But she knows that's where she has to be if she's going to win this match, and that, I'm sure, is where she's going. She really needed that first point of the last game to give herself a chance to break. She needs an early break, I think, in this second set to give herself a chance in the match.
How significant, Anne, is it that Mrs. Lloyd has won her 2 service games in this second set to love?
I just think it shows a growing confidence of Chrissy.
Time, ladies, please.
She certainly has the poise of a true champion, doesn't she, Dan?
Yes, she's really beginning to play like, well, the way we know she can play.
It's a very emotional match for both the girls, with all their intense rivalry over the years. Friendly rivalry, I might add. So Billie Jean serving then with the new balls at 1-2 in the second set.
Yes.
Love, 15.
What a lovely, lovely stroke off a very, very low, awkward ball, played so calmly that.
Love, 30.
Fine service.
15, 30.
That service to the right court and the forehand of Mrs. Lloyd has been a very effective serve.
30 all.
That's rather like a professional giving a beginner a lesson. Another very effective service, forehand out to the doubles court.
Second set.
And that's a game to remember from Mrs. King there. Fine serving and the tactical display of the lobs and drop shots and things brought it 2-all. Great play, that.
Love. Out. 15 all. Out. 30, 15.
Out.
30 all.
Just out.
30, 40.
And perhaps Billie Jean rather lucky to get away with that one because her forehand approach was only a yard or so past the service line. Well, she had her eyes right along the racket, couldn't have looked at the ball more closely than that, but trying a very acute angle.
Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd.
Billie Jean employing the centre theory, the idea being that it cuts down the angle either across or the backhand or forehand.
Mrs. Lloyd.
I can't remember Billie Jean playing a better, more subtle shot than that. That was the winning cross pass on the 14th stroke of the rally. And the rally had been full from Mrs. King of all sorts of things, loops, slices, chops.
Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd.
And mystified at losing control of that ball when she was playing just a very safe looped return. Oh, that's marvellously reached. What an incredible piece of athleticism that. Amazing, the spring in those legs. She's done it again.
Mrs. King.
So break point for the second time in this really, really tough game. 2-all first set. Yes.
Mrs. King leads 3-2, second set. Mrs. Lloyd by 1 set to love.
Well, and if the last game was one to remember from Mrs. King's point of view, what about that game?
King.
So break point for the second time in this really, really tough game. 2-all first set. Yes.
Mrs. King leads 3-2, second set. Mrs. Lloyd by 1 set to love.
Well, and if the last game was one to remember from Mrs. King's point of view, what about that game?
They were two perfectly played games by Billie Jean King, weren't they? To consider that she's love 30 down on her service at 1-2 and seemingly the match slipping away, and yet she displays such enormous courage in continuing with her plan to go to the net, to take the match to her opponent and play such superb tennis to survive. That drop shot lob routine was quite incredible, and of course it gets her back onto her superiority feeling and puts her opponent down at that particular point in the match. But in that last game, those 2 break points that she had.
Time, ladies.
Chrissy was ahead in this rally, this point in the last game. And there's the slice from Billie Jean, accurately on the line, and Chrissy not unduly perturbed by it. And here comes the heavy topspin that Chrissy now has to deal with. Both of the girls being extremely patient, and Chrissy at last being drawn into the net by that shorter ball. There's a very bad approach shot. And there goes the Billie Jean topspin backhand that time, across the court for the winner. Well, can she maintain this? I know she's fit, but just how fit is she? 3-2, second set, with a break now.
Love.
Noticeable that when Mrs. King hits her first service and hits it well, times it well, and the ball comes through fast, Mrs. Lloyd is much happier returning that than the rather slower, safer ball.
All.
3-2, 30 all, second set. Good service.
Advantage, Mrs. King.
And that ball seemed to have a bit more slice on it, and it broke in a bit to the body of Mrs. Lloyd.
Mrs. King leads 4 games to 2, second set.
And has come from 1-2 with a run of 3 games. One somehow remembers that when she beat Miss Austin in the quarter-final, she dropped the first set and made the great recovery in the second.
Love.
What a wonderful return of the service.
15 all.
Tremendously early she took that and hit it very firmly, heavy slice, and it was only, what, a few inches inside the baseline. Well, she never did anything, even at her best, better than those two last points. Inspired, absolutely inspired. Inspired play, fantastic rally. On the line.
30, 40. Game, Mrs. King. Mrs. King leads 5 games to 2 second set. Mrs. Lloyd by 1 set to love.
And I know Billie Jean has worked so hard. She's been in Europe for 6 weeks since the Italian, training on the court for hours and hours and with the Nautilus equipment. But how can anyone play a rally like this? She can only just scrape that ball up, puts up a lob, a comparatively weak one. She scurries across the court for that one, another weak lob. Chrissy again picks the wrong side because Billie Jean hasn't moved at all, is standing there anticipating. Billie Jean trying to guess, picks the right way again. And here she's getting closer and closer to the net, that half volley. And there is the killing volley. I don't know how she survived so long to stay in that rally to get to the position at the net for that volley. It is absolutely incredible.
And we've seen some inspired play through the years from Mrs. King, and you've played against it, of course. But I don't really think I've seen such inspired play as that at such a moment when she needed it.
She knows absolutely everything, Dan, that there is to know about this game. The only question mark is, can she execute it? And there's no doubt that she can some of the time, but can she enough of the time to win? Well, she's ahead in this second set, 5-2. 2 breaks in hand.
Love, 15.
Third double fault. That's a glorious winner. She really does play that forehand on the run so well. hand volley brings the score to 5-2, 30-all, second set. And the two-handed lob played to perfection in terms of touch and trajectory brings a break point for Mrs. Lloyd. Yes. There's a well-controlled running drive for a winner.
Advantage, Mrs. King.
And perhaps that error was forced because Billie Jean King came in rather quicker behind her service there. So it's set point. So after an hour and 28 minutes, the score 7-6 first set to Mrs. Lloyd, 6-2 to Billie Jean.
Final set.
Fascinating match, and the weather
Mrs.
gods
Lloyd
have relented.
serve.
Everything perfect now for this final set.
Love 15.
A little over eager, anxious to keep up the pressure.
Up. 40-15.
Net.
yes. We're waiting for the score. Well, it's 1-love to Mrs. Lloyd in the final set. And after those 5 games that Billie Jean won, to come from 1-2 to take the second set, which were really remarkable tennis, wonderful stuff to remember and to savour. Here we are with the server holding, with Mrs. Lloyd, the holder of the championship, holding her serve to 30. What a match, Anne.
Yes, it is incredible, isn't it? And I really don't think that Billie Jean can keep up that pace, although I'm sure she'll be doing her utmost. Sure she'll be telling herself now, it's now or never. Everything that I have left in my body has to go into this final set. But what calm nerves Chrissy showed that time, because she'd lost the last 5 games, she'd lost the second set with them, but she kept cool, she kept calm, she was collected, she picked her passing spots and made them. And even in that long rally that she really did not want to lose, she scurried all over the court chasing the Mrs. King drop shot, showing extreme determination. So we're back in the position that we were in the second set, with Chrissy serving first, which is an asset to her, I feel.
Mrs. King to serve.
Confidently looking as though she was going to progress, but Billie Jean, a champion herself, having other ideas. Love 1, final set.
Love 15.
It didn't look as though she was going to reach that ball, let alone control it to make the pass.
Love 30. Love 40.
It's in. It's in.
Mrs. Lloyd leads 2 games to love. Final set.
And a perfect game there by Mrs. Lloyd. Every point she won. 2 cross-court forehands, a 2-handed pass and a smash. stamina-sapping rally. 21 strokes before that cross-court error was made. Line ball.
First service. First service.
Mrs. King here, of course, all the time threatening this service. And nobody except Mrs. King, I think, was expecting a winner to be made there.
Game to Mrs. King. Mrs. Lloyd leads 2-1. Final set.
And when you've dropped your service, the old golden rule, break back immediately.
Well, Billie Jean hasn't been around this long not to know that one, has she, Dan? And she certainly applied all her experience in that last game. The match was slipping away from her fast. But she wasn't going to give up under any circumstances. This is her moment. There's the return, a little bit short. A lot of slice on it, though. And the sliced, heavily undercut forehand, still short, making Chrissy move forward. And there is that drive backhand down the line that you just would think is not possible. And Chrissy, so from a position of 2-love up and thinking, well, perhaps the old lady's tiring a little bit now, perhaps I'm in here with a good chance, but away it slips.
So Billie Jean King, having won that love game against the service, must really be feeling full of confidence again.
Love 15.
To a fourth double fault. Well, in the latter part of the second set and in this opening of the final set, she's hit some good passes, but I doubt whether she's hit one better than that. On the line. And the linesman put his hands down, palms down to the ground to indicate to the umpire it was good. It was right on the line.
3 games to 1, final set.
Well, Mrs. Lloyd moving very well there. That wasn't a bad drop shot from Mrs. King, but the way that she ran to that ball, measuring her steps, Mrs. Lloyd, as she went and then played that well-controlled pass, that gave her the 3-1 lead. Here she is serving with new balls. Certainly, once the match picked up from somewhere in the middle of the first set, these girls have really been splitting the lines, getting very close. Real test and examination for the line judges.
First service.
Billie Jean using the centre theory again very effectively there. It really does cut down the angle for the passing shot. Ooh, the latest call, but a very clear, decisive call.
30 all.
Mrs. Lloyd in momentary disbelief.
First service.
Playing like a champion now, under pressure, keeping calm and cool and keeping a rhythm, not snatching.
Game to Mrs. Lloyd. Mrs. Lloyd leads 4 games to 1, final set.
And the thing really, I think, Dan, that struck me about this match is the respect of one champion for the other, the spirit in which the match has been played, acknowledging the good shots one from the other. And noticeably in that last game at 30 all, Billie Jean had to pause to wipe her glasses. A thing she hates to have to do. She feels embarrassed by it because she doesn't want to disrupt the concentration of the opponent. And the nice little gesture of with the racket head to thank Chrissy for waiting for her. And I really do admire both of them for the way they've managed themselves in this match. But of course, Billie Jean now, it looks as though the sands of time are running out. She seems in that last volley, I thought, to feel that her legs were getting tired. There was a sign that the thigh muscles were just not quite holding her up for that final dive for the backhand volley.
And she's got a lucky dress on, hasn't she? The one she used against Tracy Austin.
Yes, I think it's been washed several times this week. She wore it to survive against Tanya Harford, and she's worn it for every match since. So, how much determination is there left there? 1-4, final set.
First service.
They've been on court an hour and 3/4. Giving away 11 years. Had a very long mixed double last night. 1-4 down now.
Love.
Slight hesitation on the part of Mrs. Lloyd. Thought it was going to be a fault, wasn't called and had to play, and was very late on the ball, so 40 love.
Net.
40-15. Mrs. Lloyd leads 4 games to 2,
And
final
both
set.
her doubles partners here, Billie Jean's doubles partners, Ilana Kloss on the right in the yellow, and on the left of the picture, Owen Davidson, with whom she's won this title here in the mixed.
Love. All.
Too long.
30-15.
Slightly ironical applause from the crowd as the linesman called out. They thought in the previous rally that a ball of Mrs. King's was out.
$40-15. 5 games to 2, final set.
And I must say that I thought Mrs. King had got that rally all buttoned up with that drop shot. Oh, there was such a chance for a lob there.
Yes, Dan, indeed. And I think it shows a slight lack of belief in the fact that she is eventually going to win this match now. Billie Jean did everything right in this rally, except the last shot. She's still making Chrissy move up the court as well as across it with the short ground strokes. And Chrissy cool and collected down the other end. Now comes the drop shot. Chrissy doesn't read it and she has to run very hard to get there. Just tips the top of the tape, which sits up beautifully for Billie Jean. And really, I think Billie Jean selected the wrong shot there. She was better off going down the line because Chrissy was obviously covering the gap. But again, when you're playing a shot like that, you've got your head down, you're playing the ball. It's not always as easy as it looks to anticipate where your opponent's going. And Chrissy, a big sigh of relief. But she's now standing to win this match. 5-2-5.
15 down. One ball. All.
That's the 6th double fault from Billie Jean. No.
15.
So for the second time in this absolutely vital game, brings off the serve volley tactic. I think she has to pursue it. Out.
30 all.
So 2-5, 30 all, final set. And that exquisite forehand return pass gives Mrs. Lloyd match point. Oh no. Oh no, Billie Jean can't believe it. The crowd really throwing their Macintoshes on and putting up the umbrellas. What a cruel moment, and it's coming down quite fast.
Five games to 2. Deuce.
Net.
First service.
forehand return.
Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd.
It's the forehand return pass, the second time that gives Mrs. Lloyd match point. Just up.
Deuce. Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd.
So the Lloyd forehand has given her her third match point. And that really was a nervy backhand. Under no pressure whatsoever, and really rushed the finish of that shot.
Advantage, Mrs. King.
Good service.
Mrs. Lloyd leads 5-3, final set.
Saved 3 match points.
Love, 15. Love, 30.
Well, that's the first double fault from Mrs. Lloyd.
All.
5-3, 30 all, final set. Yes. And that backhand cross-court pass gives Mrs. Lloyd her 4th match point.
Just.
And a gambling point that came off successfully. Great anticipation on the volley.
Advantage, Mrs. Lloyd.
Match point number 5. Yes, it's in. That's it.
Mrs. Lloyd wins 7-6, 2-6, 6-3.
In a semi-final that lasted 2 hours and 2 minutes of actual play, and that is certainly a semi-final, in fact a Wimbledon centre court match that will be remembered for a very, very long time indeed. It really was a privilege to watch it.
And I thought, Dan, how nervous and tense Chrissy was. She had her chances to break the king serve, but then the chips were really down on her service, on her own service game. And serving that double fault, she really looked with the second serve that she didn't want to hit it at all. But she survived. I think due to the fact that Billie Jean played the wrong point, in my opinion, at love 30. Extremely difficult to make these decisions, especially when your concentration is broken. But I thought the point that she played at 40-30, when Chrissy had a match point, was the right one, to come in down the centre of the court. But at love 30, she gave Chrissy a backhand. And that backhand has been a very telling shot for Chrissy over the years. And the crowd really appreciating the courage of these two girls.
And welcome to the